It's a surprising fact here in Göbekli Tepe that we have monumental architecture so early in the history of mankind. So we didn't expect it to have it so early.
12,000 years ago, long before the first cities, someone built a monument that shouldn't exist. Buried beneath the hills of southern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe challenges everything we think we know about human history.
It wasn't until German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visited the site and began digging. They realized what was really at this site.
When Grok AI analyzed its structures, carvings, alignments, and archaeological records, the results didn't support the conventional story. They raised even deeper questions. A site that breaks the timeline. The story of Göbekli Tepe began in the 1990s. A German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt visited a rocky hill in southeastern Turkey. At first, the place did not look special. For many years, local farmers had been plowing the land above it. They did not know anything important was hidden underground. The site had also been seen in the 1960s. At that time, researchers believed the stones on the surface were only medieval grave markers. No one expected anything much older. Schmidt thought differently. He believed the hill might contain very ancient remains. He started careful excavation work. As digging continued, a major discovery appeared. Large stone structures were found buried deep in the ground. They were far older than expected. This changed ideas about early human history. The oldest parts of Göbekli Tepe date back to around 9,600 BCE. Some evidence suggests it may be even earlier. This makes the site more than 11,000 years old. It existed long before Stonehenge and the pyramids of Egypt. The traditional view of history says people at this time were hunter-gatherers. They moved from place to place. They did not farm large fields. They did not use metal tools. They had no writing or cities. Life was thought to be simple and focused on survival. Göbekli Tepe shows something different. Archaeologists found large circular and oval structures. These were built with huge T-shaped limestone pillars. Some pillars are nearly 6 meters tall. Some weigh up to 20 tons. These stones are extremely heavy and hard to move. The builders cut stone from bedrock. Then they shaped it with simple tools. After that, they transported it across the land. Finally, they raised the pillars into place. This required planning and teamwork. Many people must have worked together. Hundreds of workers may have been involved. The project likely took many years. This raises an important question. Experts once believed large societies formed after farming began. But Göbekli Tepe is older than agriculture in the region. This suggests people may have built large monuments before they started farming widely. This challenges the old timeline of human development. The site was built near the end of a cold climate period called the Younger Dryas. This began around 10,900 BCE and lasted about 1,200 years. During this time, Earth became colder again. Weather changed, and life became harder in many regions. After this period ended, the climate became warmer. Farming began to spread. People settled in permanent villages. Societies grew larger and more complex. Göbekli Tepe appears right before this major change in history. Some researchers think the site is connected to these changes. It may show how humans responded to environmental stress. It may also show early large-scale cooperation. This suggests complex organization existed earlier than expected. The pillars are also covered with carvings. They show animals, symbols, and abstract designs. Their meaning is still unclear. However, they seem intentional and important. They may have had spiritual or cultural value. Göbekli Tepe continues to challenge old ideas about early humans and the origins of civilization.
After discovering the first T-shaped pillar buried at the site, he soon found more of these massive structures.
Engineering that has no explanation. Stay Standing before Gobekli Tepe's massive T-shaped pillars, their scale is immediately striking. They rise up to 6 meters and weigh as much as 20 tons, with surfaces carved in animals, symbols, and abstract motifs that have survived for over 11,000 years. The biggest question is how they were built and moved without metal tools, wheels, or domesticated draft animals. Builders quarried enormous limestone blocks, shaped them with precision, transported them across rough terrain, and raised them into place, achieving a feat that would challenge even modern engineering. An unfinished pillar still attached to the quarry floor reveals their methods. If completed, it would have measured more than 7 meters and weighed nearly 50 tons, showing the extraordinary scale of their work and the planning required to execute it. The site's layout adds another layer of mystery. Enclosures follow precise geometric patterns with paired central pillars surrounded by smaller stones placed at consistent intervals. More than 20 enclosures have been identified, suggesting shared design principles or traditions across the site. Some researchers propose that the enclosures may have had acoustic properties. Curved walls and stone arrangements can amplify and direct sound, creating unusual effects within the spaces. Whether intentional or not remains debated, but it suggests the builders may have understood complex sound behavior. The T-shaped pillars may represent stylized human figures. Carved arms appear on several pillars, ending in hands resting near belts or garments, reinforcing this interpretation. The horizontal top resembles a head and shoulders, while the vertical shaft forms a body. In many enclosures, larger pillars stand at the center, surrounded by smaller ones in circular arrangements. This layout creates the impression of gatherings or assembled figures oriented around a focal point. The meaning remains uncertain, whether ancestral, spiritual, or symbolic, but intent is evident. Gobekli Tepe challenges assumptions about early human capability. Its engineering, planning, and symbolism suggest sophisticated organization long before agriculture or writing emerged. Every carved stone and arranged enclosure reflects intention, coordination, and shared cultural knowledge across generations. Today, Gobekli Tepe continues to reshape our understanding of prehistoric societies. It suggests that complex ritual architecture and large-scale cooperation existed far earlier than previously believed. The site remains only partially excavated, leaving many structures still buried beneath the soil. Each new discovery adds depth to the mystery, raising further questions about its purpose, creators, and meaning. It stands as a landmark of ancient ingenuity.
That's 6,000 years earlier than Stonehenge. Our ancestors were capable of making this. This is Göbekli Tepe.
A library carved in stone. The massive stone pillars of Gobekli Tepe are covered with carvings unlike anything else from their time. Across the surfaces of these ancient monuments are images of animals including scorpions, foxes, snakes, vultures, cranes, wild boars, and large cats. The carvings are detailed and carefully crafted, showing that they were important to the people who created them. At first, archaeologists thought these images were simple representations of the natural world. The animals likely reflected the environment or beliefs of the builders, but repeated patterns suggest deeper meaning. Certain animals appear again and again across different enclosures built centuries apart. One of the most famous examples is Pillar 43, often called the Vulture Stone. It contains complex animal figures arranged in ways that have drawn strong scholarly attention. Some researchers suggest the carvings may represent star groups in the night sky. The scorpion shape, for example, is often linked to the constellation Scorpius. If correct, this would mean the builders had advanced knowledge of the sky. They may have tracked stars, seasonal changes, and important events through symbolic carvings. The idea remains debated, but it adds mystery to the site. Across the site, recurring animal symbols suggest cycles of time or celestial events. Some enclosures may have functioned as systems for tracking important dates. The effort involved shows these carvings were not decorative alone. Some images show human figures combined with animals, suggesting ritual meaning. Similar hybrid figures appear later in Mesopotamian and Egyptian cultures. The carvings seem to form a symbolic system for preserving knowledge and meaning. They may not be writing, but they clearly communicate ideas across time. More than 11,000 years later, their message remains only partly understood. Gobekli Tepe continues to challenge what we know about early human societies. Each discovery suggests greater complexity than once imagined. The site is still only partially excavated, leaving many mysteries underground. Researchers believe more enclosures may reveal further evidence of planning and symbolism. The precision of construction suggests coordinated labor and shared knowledge systems. Some scholars argue the site may have had ritual or ceremonial importance. Others suggest it could represent an early form of cultural memory. Whatever its purpose, Gobekli Tepe remains one of the most important archaeological discoveries. Its carvings continue to inspire debate about the origins of symbolism and belief. They may represent one of the earliest attempts to record complex human ideas in stone. In this way, the site bridges the gap between prehistory and the emergence of civilization. It stands as a reminder of how much about early human culture is still unknown. Gobekli Tepe continues to reshape our understanding of humanity's ancient past. Every new excavation adds another piece to the puzzle of its meaning. Yet the full story of its builders is still waiting to be uncovered. It remains a powerful testament to early human creativity and symbolic thought across thousands of years. Researchers continue studying the site to better understand its purpose, construction methods, and cultural significance today, and meaning layers.
What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the Tree of Life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side.
The Anunnaki connection. More than 6,000 years after Gobekli Tepe was built, the Sumerians emerged in Mesopotamia and created what is widely considered the world's first civilization. They developed writing, established cities, created legal systems, and left behind thousands of clay tablets describing their history, beliefs, and mythology. Among the most fascinating stories in these records are accounts of powerful beings associated with wisdom, knowledge, and the foundations of civilization. According to Sumerian tradition, these figures taught humanity important skills such as agriculture, governance, construction, and social organization. Whether these stories were meant to be taken literally or symbolically remains a matter of debate, but they became a central part of Sumerian culture. At first glance, Gobekli Tepe and Sumer seem separated by an enormous gap in time. One belongs to the dawn of the Neolithic age, while the other appears thousands of years later in the first urban societies. Yet some researchers have noticed intriguing similarities between the symbolic imagery found at Gobekli Tepe and themes that later appear in Mesopotamian traditions. The massive T-shaped pillars at Gobekli Tepe are often interpreted as stylized human figures. Many feature carved arms, hands, belts, and other human-like characteristics. These pillars appear to represent important beings rather than simple architectural supports. Similar themes can be found throughout later civilizations, where powerful human-like figures are depicted as teachers, guardians, or intermediaries between the human world and the divine. The location of Gobekli Tepe adds another layer to the mystery. The site sits in southeastern Turkey, not far from the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These rivers would later become the lifeblood of Mesopotamian civilization and play a central role in many ancient traditions and religious stories. Because of this geographic connection, some researchers have wondered whether cultural memories from this region may have survived for thousands of years before appearing in written form. One of the most puzzling aspects of Gobekli Tepe is how suddenly it appears in the archaeological record. Normally, major achievements in architecture develop gradually. Archaeologists can often trace a series of earlier experiments, simpler structures, and transitional stages that lead to more advanced construction techniques. Gobekli Tepe does not fit neatly into that pattern. When the site first appears, it already displays large-scale planning, sophisticated stonework, symbolic artwork, and organized construction. Archaeologists continue searching for earlier examples that might explain how these skills developed, but the gap remains one of the site's greatest mysteries. This does not necessarily mean the knowledge came from a lost civilization or an outside source. Many scholars believe the abilities required to build Gobekli Tepe developed locally among prehistoric communities whose earlier sites have not yet been discovered. However, the lack of a clear developmental path continues to fuel debate. Whatever its origins, Gobekli Tepe represents far more than a collection of ancient stones. It appears to be part of a larger system of beliefs, symbols, and knowledge that was important enough for its builders to preserve in monumental form. The site raises a question that still has no complete answer. Where did this knowledge come from? And why was it considered important enough to carve into stone more than 11,000 years ago?
But why such a monumental site was built in the first place remains a mystery.
It's very difficult to know what the purpose of something like Gobekli Tepe could be.
More than a temple. Gobekli Tepe is usually described as the world's oldest known temple. It is an understandable label. The site contains massive stone pillars, elaborate carvings, and evidence of ritual activity. At the same time, archaeologists have found very little evidence that people lived there permanently. There are no houses, streets, or signs of a large settlement. Instead, it appears to have been a destination, a place people traveled to for a specific purpose. But many researchers believe that purpose may have been far more complex than worship alone. The design of Gobekli Tepe suggests an extraordinary level of planning. The circular enclosures, the placement of the pillars, the symbolic carvings, and possible connections to astronomical observations all seem to work together as parts of a larger system. Rather than serving only as a ceremonial site, Gobekli Tepe may have functioned as a center for preserving and transmitting knowledge. One reason for this theory is the imagery carved into the stone pillars. Across the site, animals such as vultures, foxes, snakes, boars, and scorpions appear repeatedly. These symbols are not randomly scattered. Similar patterns can be found in different enclosures built over long periods of time. This consistency suggests that the carvings carried meanings understood by the people who used the site. Some researchers have proposed that the symbols may have represented seasons, constellations, or important events. If so, the carvings could have acted as a memory system, storing information long before written language existed. In a world without books, symbols carved into stone may have been one of the most effective ways to preserve knowledge across generations. The site's possible connection to astronomy adds another layer to the mystery. Certain carvings and alignments have led researchers to suggest that the builders closely observed the sky. Tracking stars and seasonal changes would have been valuable for organizing gatherings, planning migrations, and eventually managing agriculture.
But if the currently accepted timeline for mankind's advancement is correct, is it possible that primitive hunter-gatherers could have built such sophisticated megalithic structures?
Sound may have played an important role as well. Studies of ancient stone structures around the world have shown that enclosed spaces can create unusual acoustic effects. Echoes, vibrations, and resonance can make voices and sounds seem more powerful and immersive. Researchers studying Gobekli Tepe have noted that some of its enclosures appear capable of producing similar effects. If these acoustic features were intentional, they may have enhanced ceremonies, storytelling, or the transmission of important cultural knowledge. In many ancient societies, learning was not separated from ritual. Knowledge was often passed down through shared experiences designed to leave a lasting impression. The location of Gobekli Tepe is also significant. The site sits in a region associated with some of the earliest evidence of agriculture. Within a few thousand years of its construction, communities in the surrounding area began domesticating plants and developing more settled lifestyles. This has led some scholars to wonder whether sites like Göbekli Tepe played a role in bringing different groups together and spreading new ideas. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of the site is how its story ends. After centuries of use, the builders deliberately buried the enclosures beneath tons of soil and debris. This was not the result of a natural disaster. The burial appears to have been intentional and carefully planned. No one knows exactly why they did it. It may have marked the end of an era, a change in beliefs, or the completion of the site's purpose. Whatever the reason, the decision preserved Göbekli Tepe for more than 11,000 years. Today, the site remains one of the greatest archaeological mysteries ever discovered. It was clearly more than a simple gathering place. Whether it served as a temple, a knowledge center, a ceremonial complex, or all three at once, Göbekli Tepe continues to challenge what we think we know about the origins of civilization.
Not a village. There is absolutely no domestic refuse, and that there would be burials underneath the walls or underneath some of the pillars or so on, but so far they have not yet found any human remains at the site.
Why they buried it. One of the greatest mysteries of Göbekli Tepe is not how it was built, but why it was buried. Around 8000 BCE, the people who used the site made a remarkable decision. Instead of abandoning the enclosures and allowing nature to take its course, they deliberately covered them. Tons of soil, stone fragments, animal bones, and other materials were carefully placed inside the structures until they disappeared beneath an artificial hill. This was not the result of a flood, earthquake, or natural disaster. Archaeologists have found clear evidence that the burial was intentional. The process required significant effort and planning, suggesting that the people responsible considered it important. What remains unclear is why they chose to do it. One possibility is that the site had fulfilled its purpose. Over time, societies in the region were changing. Agriculture was becoming more common, populations were growing, and new settlements were emerging. The world that had created Göbekli Tepe was slowly disappearing. In that context, the burial may have been a ceremonial act marking the end of an era. Rather than destroying the site, its builders may have chosen to preserve it. By covering the structures, they protected the carvings and pillars from weather, erosion, and human activity. Ironically, the decision ensured that Göbekli Tepe would survive for thousands of years. Another possibility is that the site held knowledge, traditions, or beliefs that were no longer meant to be openly used. Throughout history, cultures have sealed sacred locations, buried ceremonial objects, and closed ritual spaces when their role in society changed. Some researchers believe Göbekli Tepe may represent an early example of this practice. Whatever the reason, the result was extraordinary. The enclosures remained hidden beneath the ground for nearly 10,000 years. Generations came and went. Civilizations rose and fell. Empires appeared and disappeared, yet the stones remained untouched beneath the soil. The modern rediscovery of the site began in the 1990s, when excavations revealed what had been preserved beneath the hill. Since then, Göbekli Tepe has transformed our understanding of prehistory and become one of the most important archaeological discoveries ever made. Today, the site is protected as a UNESCO World Heritage location. Excavations continue, although only a small portion of the area has been uncovered. Surveys suggest that many structures remain buried, meaning some of Göbekli Tepe's secrets are still waiting beneath the surface. The discovery has also sparked ongoing debates among researchers. Some view the site as evidence that complex social organization emerged much earlier than previously believed. Others focus on its religious, symbolic, or cultural significance. New theories continue to appear as fresh evidence is uncovered. What most researchers agree on is that Göbekli Tepe challenges long-standing assumptions about the ancient world. It demonstrates that people more than 11,000 years ago were capable of organizing large construction projects, creating sophisticated symbolic systems, and building monuments on a scale once thought impossible for their time. The burial of the site remains one of its most fascinating chapters. Someone made a deliberate choice to hide these structures from the world. Whether that decision was driven by tradition, changing beliefs, practical concerns, or reasons we still do not understand, it preserved an extraordinary piece of human history. And because of that choice, the message carved into the stones survived long enough for the modern world to find it again.
Well, the site of Göbekli Tepe really did send shockwaves through the whole world of early prehistory, because we'd never before known or imagined even that simple hunter-gatherers could produce such spectacular monumental structures.
What it means right now. Göbekli Tepe was built during a period of enormous change in human history. Its construction began shortly after the end of the Younger Dryas, a dramatic climate event that reshaped environments across much of the world. As temperatures rose and conditions stabilized, human societies began moving toward agriculture, permanent settlements, and new forms of social organization. Because of its age and complexity, many researchers see Göbekli Tepe as standing at the threshold between two worlds. It belongs to a time when humans were still largely hunter-gatherers, yet it displays a level of planning and organization that seems to anticipate later civilizations. This is one reason the site continues to attract so much attention. The carvings, symbols, and possible astronomical alignments suggest that the builders were not focused solely on the needs of daily survival. They invested enormous effort into creating structures that may have preserved beliefs, traditions, observations, and cultural knowledge for future generations. Some researchers have argued that certain carvings reflect an awareness of long-term astronomical cycles. One of the most important of these is precession, the slow movement of Earth's rotational axis that gradually changes the appearance of the night sky over thousands of years. A complete cycle takes roughly 26,000 years. Whether the builders of Göbekli Tepe truly understood this phenomenon remains a matter of debate. However, the possibility has fueled interest in the site's astronomical significance. If such knowledge existed, it would imply generations of careful observation and record-keeping extending far beyond what is usually associated with prehistoric societies. The broader lesson may be even more important. Göbekli Tepe challenges assumptions about the capabilities of ancient people. For decades, historians believed that complex monuments appeared only after agriculture, cities, and centralized governments had already developed. Göbekli Tepe suggests the relationship may have been more complicated. Large groups of people were clearly capable of cooperating, planning major construction projects, and creating sophisticated symbolic systems much earlier than expected. This does not necessarily overturn everything we know about human history, but it does force researchers to reconsider parts of the story. The site demonstrates that innovation, organization, and cultural complexity were emerging long before the first great civilizations appeared. At the same time, many questions remain unanswered. Why was the site built? What exactly did the carvings mean? Why were the structures eventually buried? And how much of the story is still hidden beneath the ground? Those questions are especially important because only a small portion of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. Archaeologists estimate that most of the site remains underground. Geophysical surveys suggest additional structures are still waiting to be uncovered, meaning future discoveries could significantly change our understanding of the complex. Every new excavation adds another piece to the puzzle. Some findings support existing theories, while others raise entirely new questions. That process is what makes Göbekli Tepe one of the most exciting archaeological sites in the world today. Perhaps its greatest significance is not that it provides all the answers, but that it reveals how much remains unknown. The site serves as a reminder that human history is far more complex than any simple timeline can capture. For more than 11,000 years, these stones remained hidden beneath the earth. Today, they are speaking again, offering clues about a distant past that still has many secrets left to reveal. The challenge is not deciding what the stones mean. The challenge is continuing to investigate them with an open mind, because what remains buried may be just as important as what has already been found.
Now, many of these pillars have remarkable carvings on them, wonderful carvings and bas-reliefs of animals, birds, insects, all kinds of things. So to fashion those and carve them and set them up in these structures was just absolutely amazing.
The message in the stone. 12,000 years ago, someone stood on a ridge in what is now southern Turkey and looked over a construction project that already seemed far beyond its time. Massive stone pillars had been carved, arranged, and set into the ground with deliberate precision. Symbols were etched deep into the surface. Entire enclosures had been planned as unified structures rather than improvised additions. Nothing about it looks accidental. Even more striking is what happened afterward. The builders did not leave the site exposed. Instead, they buried it. Carefully and systematically, the enclosures were filled with soil, stone fragments, animal bones, and tools until the structures disappeared beneath an artificial hill. This was not destruction in the usual sense. It was preservation. The act of burying something so carefully built suggests intent, not abandonment. Every stage of the site's creation and closure points to long-term planning. The choice of stone, the precision of the carvings, the geometric layout of the enclosures, and the decision to seal it all away indicate a level of foresight that stretches beyond immediate needs. Whoever built Göbekli Tepe was thinking in terms of generations, perhaps even eras. Modern analysis of the site continues to explore what that foresight might have meant. The scale of construction alone implies coordinated labor and shared knowledge. The pillars are not small markers. They are enormous monoliths, some weighing many tons, transported and positioned without the technologies usually associated with later civilizations. Their arrangement is not random, but follows repeated architectural patterns across multiple enclosures. The symbolic carvings add another layer of complexity. Animals and abstract forms appear throughout the site in consistent combinations. These images are not scattered decoration. They are structured, repeated, and intentionally placed. This suggests that they carried meaning within a shared system of communication that is no longer fully understood. Some researchers have also examined possible astronomical connections.
If Göbekli Tepe hadn't been found, none of this would have happened. It led to a widespread interest in the whole area, the world's oldest known megalithic stairway.
Certain alignments and symbolic groupings appear to correspond with celestial cycles, seasonal changes, or long-term shifts in the night sky. If these relationships were intentional, they would indicate that the builders tracked time on scales far beyond a single human lifetime. Taken together, these elements suggest a site designed not only for ritual or gathering, but for the transmission of structured knowledge. A place where information could be encoded in stone, preserved, and later interpreted by those who understood the system. The decision to bury the site complicates that interpretation even further. It raises questions about whether Göbekli Tepe was meant to be temporary in use, but permanent in message, whether its purpose had a defined endpoint, or whether it was closed for reasons tied to environmental, cultural, or social change. What remains certain is what survives today. The stones are real, the carvings are measurable, the layout is deliberate, and the absence of a clear developmental sequence in the surrounding archaeological record continues to challenge simple explanations. Göbekli Tepe does not demand a single conclusion. It presents a set of facts that resist easy categorization. It shows that people more than 11,000 years ago were capable of building on a monumental scale, organizing labor, and creating enduring symbolic systems. What it does not explain is everything else. That gap between evidence and interpretation is where the mystery remains. and it is also where future discoveries may change what we think we understand. For now, the site stands as a record from a distant past that has not yet finished speaking. Whether it is fully understood or not, it continues to ask the same question of every generation that studies it. What kind of knowledge was important enough to carve into stone and then bury beneath the earth? If this is the kind of mystery that reshapes what you thought you knew about human history, stay tuned. Gobekli Tepe is revealing secrets, and future discoveries may challenge everything again. Subscribe for more deep dives soon ahead. Now watching.